Hello everyone. So this lesson is going to talk about producers, consumers, and decomposers. Okay, so let's start off with producers. Producers are organisms that make their own food. Plants are an example of producers. They're able to create their own food by taking in the sunlight and absorbing water. So they are able to feed themselves. Okay. A consumer is an organism that cannot make their own food. We are considered consumers because we have to rely on other living organisms in order to get our energy. So we eat other living things, and that's how we can live and that's how we grow. Squirrels are consumers. You think about tigers and hippos and even things like snails, anything that eats other things because they can't produce their own food, they are considered consumers, okay? We take all that in. So let's just practice a little bit here. I want you guys to look at these pictures. We have a fish, we have a deer, we have a woman, wheat, strawberry, and corn. Okay, think about what a producer is and think about what a consumer is. Okay, so when you think about the fish, would you say that the fish is a producer or consumer? A fish is a consumer because it cannot make its own food. A fish has to rely on other things and it eats other organisms so that it can live and grow. So think about a deer. Would that be a consumer or a producer? You're right, it's a consumer. A consumer eats other things in order to live. Deers eat grass and leaves and things like that. They are vegetarian. So let's think about the lady. She would be a consumer because we have to eat other things that are alive, or not necessarily meat, but vegetables and things like that so that we can survive. So we talked about producers being plants. And if you look at the next three pictures, wheat would be a producer because wheat is a plant. Strawberries are fruit and they come from plants, and so does corn. So those three things would be producers. So let's take a look at what consumers look like. Consumers have three different parts. You have herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores, okay? So herbivores, if you take a look at the word itself, H-E-R-B, that's herb, that means plants. These type of animals or organisms eat only plants. Carnivores, if you think about that, carnivores eat only meat. And if you think about the Spanish word for meat, it would be carne. So carnivore sounds close to carne. So they eat only meat. And then you have the third word, omnivore. Omnivore eats both. They can eat meat and they like to eat plants and other vegetables and things like that. If you are someone who doesn't eat meat ever at all, you would be considered an herbivore or a vegetarian. If you are somebody who hates to eat vegetables and only eats meat all the time, then you would be considered a carnivore because it's all you eat is meat. Now, typically most humans are omnivores because they like to eat meat and they like to have vegetables with their meat, and that gives them the protein and all the nutrients that they need. So let's try to guess here which picture goes with the word. So if we look at the word herbivore, which picture do you think would go with it? Would it be the top picture, the middle picture, or the bottom picture? It would be the bottom picture because this animal eats only grass. Okay, so it does not eat meat. So you look at carnivore. It would be the top picture because this animal eats meat. And then omnivore would be the middle picture because bears like to eat fish and they also like to eat berries. So they eat plants and meat, so other animals. All right, let's go on to the next slide. This next slide is over decomposers. If you take a look at the pictures that I've provided for you, we have mushrooms, which are also fungi. They're called fungi. It's a type of bacteria that grows in things. You have worms. Decomposers are organisms that break down or they decompose waste and the remains of dead organisms. So what happens during this process is when they're breaking and they're breaking down all the remains of dead organisms, nutrients are being returned to the soil and to the air and to the water. So worms, as slimy and yucky as they look, they are very important to us because as organisms die and they get brought into the dirt, they break all that down and that creates nutrients in our dirt, which creates nice soil for our plants and our vegetables and our fruit and things like that that grow from the soil. So they are very important to us and to just life itself. We go to the next slide. This next slide just kind of talks, I wanted to put 2 pages here from the book. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I want you guys to understand that every organism plays an important part in the ecosystem. I know that we've talked a little bit about conservation in the classroom, and we've talked about how if we start messing up one part of the cycle of life, then other things will be affected. And we don't want to do that because if some animals can't eat, then they'll start dying off, and then things that depend on that animal will start dying off, and it just becomes a big problem and it's a chain reaction. So just know that we need to do our part and take care of our planet, take care of animals and just ecosystems in general so that our livelihood can remain somewhat as good as we have it. We need to do a lot to build it back up because it has been damaged a lot. So that's a small lesson over producers, consumers, and decomposers. Please take a few minutes to go to the vocabulary cards and study those words just so that you get a little bit more familiar with it. You should find that under the science course. It's a small purple folder and it says vocabulary cards. Go into there and you'll find it under ecosystems and organisms or environments and organisms. I'm not sure which one, but just look there, study, click on the vocabulary cards. They'll get bigger and just study those, the definitions. Okay, so you can get a better understanding of that. All right, guys, that's it for now. Head over to the activities folder and go ahead and get started on those.